So it is important to see that when we talk about equity, how the room disappears. It's actually quite sad. Imran, you've got to stay because you can't have one guy here. Absolutely. I talk about allyship here. Oh, we've got two now. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So, as most of you know me, I said we have two guys here. Is that your profile? So, you know, as most of you know me, I drive a women empowerment initiative called W Suite, which is really about getting conversations about having a seat at the table. And for the past 5 years, I've hosted various platforms, mentorships, masterclasses, which what I do best is bringing networks of people in rooms together that ordinarily people don't get to see. And over the years, the seat of the table conversation has been overused, I think, right? Because I've written a book, by the way, guys.
Hey. Congrats.
Right?
Yeah.
My memoir is called Brave Today, and one of the topics is really at the seat of the table. And I think when we have a conversation about equality and equity, these are the conversations that we need to have at the seat of the table. But I digress. In my book, I talk about empowerment and I talk about a seat at the table, but I also feel that we need to have conversations about why we're entitled to the seat at the table. Because everybody wants a seat at the table, but do we have a voice at this table? And what do we bring to this table? So that's what W Suite is about. So while equality aims to treat everyone the same, equity acknowledges that we all start from different places and require different resources and support to thrive. And as we navigate, we need to foster innovation, enhance productivity, and achieve sustainable growth. So when we talk about equity, I always say these days, equality seems like a human right. How many of us own things? How many of us own shares? How many of us own businesses? How many of us have that seat at the table where we can command a voice that is heard? So I'm going to speak to the doctor in the house. Dr. Veronique, how do you define equality and equity, and why is it important to differentiate between the two in our current context?
From my perspective and from my experience, it's not about having a seat at the table. We're in 2024. It's not about having a voice at the table. We need to actually bold the table, because very often you come to the table and what happens at the table? There is a culture around the table. Isn't it so? And you have to subscribe to that culture, whether you like that culture or not. And so as a provocateur, I believe that all of us who are currently in leadership positions should dismantle the current tables that we sit around. We should ask the difficult questions. So who cares if nobody likes you because you're asking the difficult questions? Because that normally happens. You get disliked, you get ostracized, and so what do? You become silent. And so I believe it is time that we start to build our own tables as women. Because when you come to a table, that table has a history. Isn't it so? And so that is important for me. Let's start getting together as women and building the tables.
Or let's go old school and sit on the grass, on the floor. Because I think,
there you go, even better.
I think we're trying to, talk about people and planet. Let's go back to the grass and sit on the floor. And I think we are more rooted and grounded then.
Absolutely.
Right. So I think, Wendy, can you share personal experience? Because I know you in the space where you know, you're on the entrepreneurship space, but you didn't just arrive there. Can you share your personal experience of how you've been fighting for equity?
Thank you, Katie. And I like the point Doc is raising, that we must start building our tables, our own tables. And I started building my table because I had the support of women that saw potential in me and said, we're going to walk a journey with you. And also, I think a lot of the time we expect people to come and mentor us and not reach out and say, I am not letting you go until you give me what I need. And at times it's not even about money. At times it's about asking for the right, you know, knocking at the right doors, opening those doors for the person, opening those doors for you. So I started my business in 2009, Virtual Business Solutions. And when I started, I was young and had so many ideas. And the person that walked a journey with me, unfortunately she's late now, a lady by the name Anthea Migo, who said, Wendy, you have so many babies. And when she said so many babies, I was like, no, I don't have so many babies. I only have 2. And she said, no, you've got so many ideas. And if all these babies were crying and you are a young mother, what would you do? And I said to her, look, I don't know. She said, you would listen to the baby that's crying out the loudest, and you would take that baby and nurse that child. And so for me, that baby was women empowerment. And I started walking this journey to say, I'm putting up platforms to bring women to opportunities that are out there. Because I know those opportunities doesn't mean that Katie has those opportunities. And I think that's what's happening today. You have a different network, others have a different network, and bringing those opportunities in one room and setting that table and saying, here are the opportunities. What you do with it, that's your problem. So that has been my journey, and it didn't end there. I got connected to international organizations now, representing international organizations in South Africa through hand-holding and walking a journey with a fellow woman who saw potential in me and said, you deserve a seat at this table.
But you do it, you pay it forward as well. You're doing it with mini-boss, with youngsters, and you are paying it forward.
Absolutely. I run an international business school for children, which a lot of people say, business school for children. And it's allowing children to learn about business skills at a young age, because the mindset is to build the next generation of business leaders and not catch them when they can't find a job. Their mindset is already set on, I need to find a job. And so they get into entrepreneurship as a second or third option. And once they find something that is attractive to them, because entrepreneurship is not it's not child's play. It's not child's play. And that's apparently because I have children who are in. So it's not for the faint-hearted. And once they experience challenges, and there's an opportunity for a job, what do? They leave the business and they go for the job, which is easier.
It's the security.
And now it's security. And now you have these small businesses that are failing. Government is putting money and they are failing because people never had that thing, I want to start my own business. I want to create those jobs. So that's what we are doing with Mini Boss Business School, paying it forward. We recently won an award at the Startup World Cup Championship in Turkey, where we represented South Africa, and we came back with an SDG award.
Wow, well done. There you go.
It's done. So it's about paying it forward. It's about putting your hand up and saying, I am connecting with people, and not always taking, but also adding value. You must have a relationship that is symbiotic to say, I'm adding value, they're adding value back to me.
That's important, yeah. You know, Thabang, you are in a very male-dominated environment.
Correct.
Industry that is logistics, and it's like 24 hours working, and there you are. You just don't cry in the corner.
Never. That is not me, and you know me very well. I was raised by quite strong women in my life, so I work in a, like you're saying, a very male-dominated industry. So I'm in the MICE industry, so that's meetings, incentives, events, and conferences. So in that space, most of the time, let's say 80% of the time, it's the males that are actually in charge. But funny enough, a lot of the creative work and a lot of the getting the juice and the sweetness in terms of putting all these events and exhibitions together comes from us as women. And sometimes we do not, actually I'm going to say it because Katie actually gave me a good pep talk with Sharon the other day, we do not congratulate ourselves or actually acknowledge the greatness that we bring to the table, because like you're saying, we walk into this table that's already been set for us. So now, how do we then become the change agents that actually say, excuse me, I'm here, and I'm presenting this on the table, and I know what I'm doing. I had to work very hard, Kate. I had to, for instance, it sometimes becomes a cultural and even racial thing at times, and unfortunately those things still exist, where you can walk into, for instance, sometimes an AV setup which will be male dominated, and here I am with a female that I have a vision and I know what needs to be done. Some people do not respect that. And now you actually have to work twice as hard to actually sit your foot down to say that I know what I'm doing, we've got the vision, and we're going to do this. So it's all those challenges that you have to come across, but also it's also how you present yourself, because you have to be sturdy in self as well.
So over and above that, you in a male-dominated environment, you're in a very white-dominated environment.
Correct.
How are you standing firm in owning equity in that share of the events business? Because I mean, historically, 35, 40 years, white-owned companies own events, and they have all the resources, they are cheaper, they're more cost-effective. How are you ensuring that you, as Thabang, is getting the piece of the pie?
How I am ensuring I'm getting a piece of the pie. Number one, I have strategically removed myself from becoming, it's not a bad thing to be an employee. I consider myself as a partner within businesses, where I come and I provide you with consultative ideas and greatness to make you look good. So I treat every project as a collaboration between myself and whoever I am working with, and it's a contract that we have. And my thing is that even if you are an employee, if you start thinking of self as a partner to the business and how you contribute towards that, you then empower self and you're adding more value. But also, because of our industry and how it is, Katie, I have strategically partnered myself. Number one, I work very closely with Presi at Karuna, so I know that in that, it's basically cutting down the status quo of just being white-dominated. So now I work with a lot more BEE in terms of status, obviously to reach the equality that is required within the industry, but also you partner strategically with people that actually are for that, because it's going to take a while to get to a point where we'll have that equality. But also, it's also about us that have been in the industry long enough. It is time for us to actually partner and actually, like you're saying, take it back to like event schools, go to the hotel schools, go to the universities where the children are learning about the hospitalities that want to get into the MICE industry, and start them off quite young and show them what it's about and share and impart your knowledge. And that is also something that I know that we're passionate about in the space that we're working in. So that's me. I choose strategic relationships where they're going to benefit and actually change the status quo. There's nothing wrong with what is happening, but there has to be that change, and we have to claim, and let's say take up the space.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Thabang. Sam, you're fairly new as an entrepreneur. You come from a media background. We've just hijacked her. But you would be aware of barriers to equity, I mean, in all your years of journalism and so forth.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the big areas that I work in since I left radio is female empowerment, is women empowerment, because, and I love your idea of building our own tables, but what I say to women is, up until I heard that, if you don't take your seat at the table, you are the meal. You are the meal. And one of the things I say is, listen, don't ever sit near the door. Because when a man knocks at the door and a woman answers, you will have to go out and fix that. A man would just go, no, sorry, in a meeting. Do not take the coffee order. Don't do it, because now you're doing this skinny latte with 2 shots of mocha and you've missed it. And don't take the notes. There are people who are hired to take the notes. And if you take the notes, then you are no longer part of that meeting. You are now the note taker. And you can't be part of decision making if you're busy writing down what everyone says. And what I draw off is the fact that in my first job was an incredibly male-dominated environment. And the only way you could really connect with people, because I was a journalist before I was a laughing head, was for me, was either sport or drinking. And I hate sport. I have no interest in it whatsoever. I find it very boring. But I know. But I was a very good drinker, and I actually became an alcoholic. I don't blame the situation. I've been 22 years dry. But I drank and drank and drank and drank. Thank you. Because I could drink people under the table. So no one was like, oh, Sam's brilliant at her job. He was like, Sam can really hold alcohol. And I'm like, yes, there's my award right there.
I remember that on radio. It used to come across on radio as well.
Yeah. So working with men, there was no feeling. It's like this and take it or leave it. So I'd had a baby and I was exhausted, and I must just tell the story. I don't want to take up too much time, but I came in the one morning, I was shaking. I'd been up 7 times in the night. And I was sitting at the desk, and Jeremy Mansfield, who I worked with, who was a good friend, said, oh, what's wrong with you? I said, oh, guys, I was up 7 times in the night. I'm so tired. And the response was, well, you wanted a fucking baby. 3 days later, the controller of the show came in and he looked tired. And this is the end of the story. Yeah. And he looked tired. And Jeremy said, Shane, but what's wrong? And he said, no, Jerome, like, my alarm went off last night and I had to get up twice. He's like, you're that shit. I went, well, you wanted a fucking alarm and now you've got one.
Yeah. So I think it is, as women, there's stats that say it's 175 years since when we will get pay parity, when we'll be equal pay. Yeah. 175 years. So it's not going to happen in any of our lifetimes, or our children's lifetime or grandchildren's lifetime. So Doc, I'm going to ask you this question. How important is data in understanding disparities? And what kinds of data should we be looking at to inform an approach to equity?
The one thing I'm going to mention in this room is what I mentioned in the first room that I was in. Too often, we are using data, global data, that is developed, that is refined, and that is analyzed in the global north. The context is totally different to our context. And so it is very important that we, as women in particular, make sure that the data that is being used on us, because sometimes data gets used on you, that you need to be smart enough, you need to be sharp enough to challenge that data.
Correct.
And so when it comes to this thing of salaries, in particularly when data is used on us and when data is used against us, you need to make sure as a woman, it's very unfortunate that we have to work 1,000 times harder than our equal supposed partner that is males. And please, I have nothing against males, okay? You're lovely. But what's important to me is to know your worth.
Yeah.
And so I'm very proud of the fact that I am 60 years old.
Yeah.
How old am I going to be in 100 and how many years? 75. Oh, hell no. So I go into the conversation and I say, this is what I am worth based on. You want to throw data at me? Watch me throw data back at you. This is who I am. This is my experience. This is what I bring to your organization. And based on that, this is what I'm worth. If you feel that I'm not worthy of that, I shall give you my resignation letter, and hasn't happened it hasn't worked against me. And so we need to be bold enough. We need to be brave enough. If something is thrown at you, know how to throw the ball back. And that for me is important. Know your worth, stand in your worth, and be the individual that you are.
Yeah. I think there's some of us that can do that, Doc. But I think there's some women and young girls they suffer with imposter syndrome. I mean, most of us do as well. So mentorship is equally important. You know, the old age mentorship of meeting someone and that mentorship lasts for 2 years, I've changed that. We do speed mentorships, and believe me, in 3 hours, you can walk away with knowing how strategies are, where to get funding from, you know, and what your growth should be or your transformation should be. And I think because we don't have time. Wendy, I know from a mentorship perspective, you and I have spoken about this because that is where our passion is. How do we get to ensure that mentorship is equal? Because not everybody is mentorable, because then it is like, you know, what are you telling me? I know more than you kind of thing. But people do need. What are the tools that you use in your mentorship to ensure that we get to that equality?
I think I want to start on the data part before I answer that question. I asked myself a question: why is it are we still in a conversation where we are discussing equity? With so many women empowerment organizations in the entire world, and in our country in particular, 30 years later, we are still talking about a pay gap which is between 23 and 45% less than our male counterparts. Yet, in this country, we have about 42.1% of women-headed
Sorry,
households.
can I just do this? I sound like I'm going to have a baby. But Sam, can you take over? Look at Sam. Can you take over this? I have a Channel Africa interview that, because of everything running late, I am so sorry. And this is live.
Okay.
Will you be able to take this?
I think I can.
Okay. Will that be okay, guys?
That's okay.
Open for engagement?
And open for engagement. But I'll be back. Sorry.
Don't worry, I'll open for engagement.
We got you.
We got you. So the conversation is, in South Africa, it is said that 42.1% of households are women-headed households. Yet you are still paying women far less. And 30 years later, we are regressing instead of progressing. So that's a conversation we need to ask. Are we asking the right questions, as you were saying? Are we advocating for the right things? Or is our voice heard at all?
Absolutely, absolutely, and I'm so glad you said that. I'm building on from what both of you have said. I went into a corporate recently where 65% of the 300 women in the room were female-headed households, and of that 60%, 8% of the fathers were paying regular maintenance. So these women were not just single-headed households, they were single-income households, earning less than their male counterparts. So I think what you've both said is so terrific. I really do. Thabang.
But I want to ask a question as we're sitting here. I don't have any children as yet, right? And I think also with exposure and trying to understand and place myself and strategically be in the right places, speaking to the right people, and standing firm in who I am, what is it that we can do as women to impart to our children that we are actually bringing up in this world to make them the change agents and be the change we want to see? Because I feel like I'm glad I had people that helped me along the way. However, can we then not maybe also start thinking in a sense to say that, can we turn it around to ourselves as females? Because also we can be our own worst enemies.
Yep.
At the same time, how do we change the narrative where we say that we want to take up the space, we want to build our own tables, we want to do this, but as women, as we're sitting here, with this inequality, how do we create the equity, and what are we going to do as ourselves here that we can actually instill from root level in the household?
So if I can jump in on that one. If I can jump in on that one. It's community. Because the women sitting up here, you're strong and powerful and respected. And people know who you are. And when you walk into a room, you don't have to worry who's built the table, because you're going to adjust it, right, for where you are. What I've discovered in what I've been doing is that when there is community within the women in an organization, they become very, very strong. So one of the things that we do in my training is we do a forgiveness exercise where we forgive ourselves for things that have sometimes been put on us that we took on, because women take on everything. We do. And if you ever didn't believe that, go and see a woman ask for a salary increase compared to a man. The man will get told no, he'll come out and go, I'm leaving this company, it's a terrible place, or they don't appreciate me. The woman will come out and go, what did I do wrong? Why? So, so one of the ladies said, I have to forgive myself for being so stupid as to stay with a man who cheated on me, and I knew it, and then he gave me AIDS. Those were her exact words. You have never seen women move so fast, heels climbing over chairs to get to this woman to hold her. There is now a coffee group among people in that organization for people who've been affected by HIV, brought on by that woman. And that's how we do it. Women are set up to be in competition. And we know this, because otherwise, why is the most exciting thing about you that you've lost 10 kilograms? Yeah, that is the most exciting thing about you, isn't it? Forget what you've done with your life. You've lost 10 kilos. How did you do that? In the same year that I swam a Robben Island crossing, I lost 10 kilos. No one asked me about the swim. How did you get thin?
Well, I think the other important thing is that particularly for us as women who are in quite powerful leadership positions, the one thing we need to do is to develop circles of trust so that you don't have that negative talk with yourself. That's very important. The second thing is to be the example in your home. To be the example, no matter how tough it is. You have boundaries at work, but you can't have boundaries at home. I mean, like, seriously? Hell no. And that, for me, is vitally important. And then the third thing that's very important is go back into the communities from which you come. Because even though we're sitting here as powerful women, practically every single one of us come from a very poor background. Simple example, from grade 8 to grade 12, I wore the same pair of school shoes. And the lesson I tell my younger self is, new shoes is overrated. You know what I'm saying? And so develop circles of trust so that you stop that negative talk to yourself. Be the example and be the role model inside your home. Go back into the community from which you came and be that role model. That is so important because it feeds your soul. We need to feed our souls with positivity, not with junk.
That's true, because also we tend to forget that we're wired differently than males are.
Absolutely.
We are not the same. So I think if we also tend to understand and be kind to ourselves, like you're saying, and actually open yourself up to actually learning, and mostly, I think, even in the working industry and life in general, we also need to heal. Like you're saying, forgive ourselves for some things that need to happen.
Absolutely.
I think they have questions.
And then this guy's been waiting for a very long time.
Correct.
There we go.
It's okay, you can.
Well, actually, the man with the stripes, but okay. Imran, you can go first.
I'll be the mic. All right, thanks, mate. Detach the male figure in me and just listen to the question. Okay. It's a crisis. I've been in the media industry and I understand where I'm coming from. The ill-disposed feminist that South Africa is faced with. There's pure feminism and ill-disposed. Pure feminism pushes women's rights, equality for all. I'm an advocate for that. I hire 7 young, beautiful young ladies, and it's intentional. I'm not ticking the triple BE boxes. It's because of the capacity that I'm seeing in them. Let's talk about the ill-disposed feminist. The one that advocates for hatred, hostility between the boy and the girl child. The programs that we host, if you ask a 17-year-old young man now, what do you think about women empowerment? The answer they give you, we don't know what we have done. Because ill-disposed feminists are popular in the media, they're in the platforms, you find them in these podcasts. They are speaking hogwash, and they don't see the animosity they're creating on the ground. So I want to ask this question. How do you silence these ill-disposed feminists that create hostility between the girl and the boy child?
It's like, can I answer that question? It's like asking someone to silence a genocide. You're never going to make any change. I think... No, listen. I think when it comes to women, and we are humanists, we might call ourselves feminists, we are not anti-men. And if there are women that are anti-men, we cannot change them. We have to change the women that we want to empower. Those women are equally think about the future generations. Their agenda that they're driving is their own agenda. And I will not take responsibility as driving a women empowerment to get into a conversation with them about how they feel with men. Because they have trauma. They need help. They need to fix themselves. They have issues. I am a mother of a son. I would never bash my son or bash men, because it will mean that I'm anti-men, and I'm not anti-men. So I think if you want to talk about how we as women can fix the generation that we want to fix, then we can have this conversation. But I don't think I'm prepared to have a conversation with someone that is beating up other men.
So if I can, sorry, just before. Yeah. So if I can, this is quick, sorry. If I can just jump in there. When we work, and the way we all work, that women empowerment is not the same as male disempowerment. That everyone can work together. Female empowerment just brings us all up to a level where we are equitable. It is not about disempowering males to bring them down to a different level. Sorry, Thabang.
True. Actually, I was going to add on to that, because remember what we're here about, we're saying is that we're here to create that equity. We want to get to that table. We want to create the tables as well, and not just be part of the status quo. However, to get back to your question, how do we then help that person? Here's the thing. First, it goes back to healing and forgiving self. There are so many things that are happening in this world that are vile. There's mental health issues. We go through a lot as a society, and things are not spoken on. And even, it doesn't matter what gender you are, everybody suffers. However, if you are not willing to heal as self, and also be conscious in your healing, and conscious about the person you are, that's where the problem exists. I can feed you and give you the greatest and take you to psychiatrists, psychologists, whatever you name it. If you are not in the space of wanting to heal and be a better person for self, nobody can help you. It has to start here with you. So that's the thing. You need to heal. We can only impart greatness and goodness unto those people. It's not everybody that is out there to bash the male. Yeah. Yes, there may be a little bit on the doo-doo side. However, not everybody is there. And we need to also be honest to say that if you're bad, you're bad. If you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're doing nonsense, you're doing nonsense. Can we stop sugarcoating that there are things that are actually being wrong, and now we're saying, no, it's a whole man of treasure. No. You're doing nonsense. And
but also, Thabang, are those very same women bashing women also?
Correct.
So I think go back to you. They need to help.
They need healing.
Because they're the same women that we call it pull her down syndrome. It's the very same crabs in the bucket syndrome. It's the same. I mean, Doc, you can talk about this from a transformational perspective. How do you deal with this?
Can I say, I so concur with the panelists. How do you reason with an alcoholic that is totally drunk?
You don't.
How do you reason with a drug addict that's totally high? Until that person makes a choice to heal within themselves, then, because otherwise you're giving them airtime, and airtime is precious. Not everybody deserves our airtime. That's important.
We have a question.
Yeah, actually Katie just asked my question. That's what I wanted to ask. Because, you know, I'm a United Nations Target Gender Equality Ambassador. I'm also part of the IFC Respect at Work program. And what we're learning there is, yes, companies have policies regarding anti-harassment, gender-based violence, and anti-bullying, right? And you come now and you be part of these wonderful programs, you get all the motivation to say, okay, great, this is what we can be able to do, and you are looking forward to building that table. But when you have to come now and present these issues that actually concern you as a woman, you find that it is the women themselves that are the challenge. Yes. The men, what I'm seeing from the programs we're doing, they are actually aware now that it is not sexy to be a person that's oppressing women. If they want to do it, they do it very hush-hush. But you find that it is the very same women that do it outright in your face and will get a community to be against you. So especially in the corporate space, whereby now, exactly, and now what I've done is annually I do these webinars where I create a safe space. Let's talk about general things. And I talked about a topic to say, let's cut down the barriers. I see a woman in the passage, I see you every day, but I don't even know you like dogs. Let's talk about dogs. General things that we as women are the challenge. We must also take the responsibility. And I really like your question because it is a lot. Yes. We as women, we find that we are the biggest challenge. One thing we suggested, for example, a gender neutral bathroom. I was surprised to find one woman that actually said, what?
Yeah, I don't want a gender neutral.
So how do we get over that?
I also don't go to gender neutral bathroom because we are scared as well of being there. I think if there's anything else that we...
Yes, I had a question.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
Katia.
Can I answer you? Because you particularly said, what can we do for our children?
Correct, yes.
Never underestimate the power of what you give your children to consume for information. I completely changed the way I thought of myself as a woman and ordinary and whatever when I wrote that book on the women in the liberation struggle and how ordinary they were. They were not panelists. They were not professors, doctors. They were women who came from nothing and had a vegetable garden that fed the family. When you recognize the extraordinary in the ordinary of the woman through books, the power of reading, not consuming TikTok with all that toxicity that it's saying, the power of books with women who have overcome is what you should be giving your children.
Thank you for that. It's authentic, true learning and insightfulness that goes back to who we are as a human, where we are not consuming frivolous, in the air things that do not grow, that do not enlighten, that do not feed the soul, body, mind, and soul. So I think if we can go back to that.
Authenticity.
Authenticity, exactly that.
We're running out of time.
Okay. Can I
There's two questions.
Oh, then you finish, because I had no idea what we were doing.
Okay. Okay. Can I?
And then we're done.
Correct.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. The conversation is very interesting. Although I would just like to ask one thing to the panelists due to the Socio-Economic Impact Summit. My question is, in advancing to the SDG goal, which is number 5, the gender equality, and goal 10, which is reduced inequalities, my question will go about how can policies and programs be designed to not only promote equality, but also ensure equity by addressing historical disadvantages and meeting the specific needs of vulnerable groups? I mean, can I go on that one? I mean, I think it's just to sum up what everybody has spoken about. We are in a, like Katie said earlier, it's
It's going to take us years for us to get to a point where males and females are earning the same amount of salaries, do you understand? So now it goes back to there's policies in place, there's all these things that are happening. Can we actually action them? Can they actually be done now? Can we stop talking on it? I am sitting here and I have a male counterpart who's equally, if not I am even more qualified and experienced, but they're still earning more. Can we stop talking about these things? Can we start doing them and implementing them? Because people are existing in these companies and they're all supposed to be earning the same amount of money, but because a gender privilege exists because they're male, it makes them better. Let's just stop talking these things on paper. Let's just do.
We're not going to get anywhere in 117 years because patriarchy hasn't changed. And so how do we address patriarchy in our communities and how we raise our children? And to speak to your point about the weight loss question, it's because we enable patriarchy because of the way we're operating and lack of consciousness. So what does patriarchy mean? That we essentially as women aren't equal and the system is geared against us. South Africa has so much legislation, gender equity, GESI programs, but none of it is translating into actual action. So you ask about action, I think we need to say it out loud, the P word.
Well, it's
and how do we call it what it is? No, we're talking in circles. We need to say what it is, act on it. It's the reason why women are being killed every day. It's the reason why there's continued discrimination. How do we dismantle patriarchy?
Thank you.
If I can take that.
Yeah.
I think it's everybody's responsibility in this room. It's not the responsibility of the government or the responsibility of civil society organizations and so forth. I'll make a story and it will sound very crazy. At home, my son washes dishes. He knows that he has to wash dishes. It's not a girl or boy thing. It's conditioned. I just need to make sure that he washes them properly because he doesn't at the stage. It's about instilling those values to say we are influencing futures. We started Table of Influence, which is also a women empowerment platform, and our slogan is influence futures. What are we doing to influence the next generation? What are we doing to influence the future, the change that we want to see? We have to action it today. We have to plant the seeds of the future that we want to see. So in my view, I think it's everybody's responsibility to change patriarchy. We can't go and say, you are supposed to give us this, when we ourselves back at home, as you're saying, we are acting the opposite. We're saying the girl must do the dishes and the boy must go and watch PlayStation.
If I can jump in and just agree with you there. I asked a group of women, if you don't like the patriarchy in terms of incentives. So how often is an incentive trip something to do with sport? How often is it going to see a rugby game? How often is it, or a safari? And what do we do for women? And you know that no one could answer it. No one could answer it. And I thought to myself, what would I want to do as a woman? And one woman actually said, I'd like to go on a self-defense course. So I thought, wow, is that where we are? Is that where we are, that men go to the rugby and we go and learn how to defend ourselves? But it's such an interesting question. And so in terms of the patriarchy, we do have a tendency, all of us, to talk. But where are the solutions? And I must just tell you, from my daughter's side, I've tried to bring up a warrior, not a fighter, a warrior, somebody who thinks before they strike. And when she was 7, she was hopping around the house in one flip-flop. And I said, where's your other silver flip-flop? She said, I don't know. She says, but I'm going to look for it. So I joked. I said, you're like Cinderella. You know, you've lost your shoe, except it's not a glass slipper. And she went, I am nothing like Cinderella. I don't need some man to find my shoes. And that's where we have to be, right? I don't know how to bring this to a graceful end because I wasn't supposed to start it. So.
We've got one last question, okay. And then we're going to close.
And then you've got to close, Thabang.
Hi, I also came in a bit late, so I'm not sure if this was discussed earlier on, but my question is based on, just like you just mentioned, be a warrior, not a fighter. But we often find ourselves in spaces where we have to fight and not be warriors because of certain situations, society, and patriarchy as well. So my question is, if I'm in a position of leadership or position of power, how do I go about it that I don't need to fight you for you to respect me? How do I do it that you respect me even if I'm a woman? You're a man. In most spaces, men have more vocal power. If he can say it, most people will lead and follow. But if I'm a woman myself and I do the same thing that he does, no one is going to follow me as easily. I need to stand there and fight and show you that I'm as worthy as my male counterpart. So once I am deemed worthy and I'm in that position, I still need to fight. I still need to show you that as much as you voted for me and I'm there, but every day is a fight for me to show you that I am worthy. So how do I go about it that I don't have to fight you every day? How do I become the warrior and not the fighter? Yes.
Thank you. Well said.
Okay, can I answer that? It's not about fighting people. It's about engaging people from a place of authenticity and a place of kindness. You'll be amazed at the response that you get from somebody who comes at you, kicking, screaming, shouting, and you just look at the person and you just look. Don't say a word. They are expecting you to kick, scream, and fight. They're expecting you to respond the way they are doing. So all you do is you stand and you watch the person. Give them their time. And when they're done, you ask them, are you done now? I'm going to pray for you, and you walk away. Don't give in. Do not ever lower yourself to the standards of other people. Strive every single day to be authentic and to be kind. And that's how you win the battles and the war every single day. And that's my final shot.
One, two. I think what I want to just say is, one, you are not a man. You are a woman. And you don't have to lead like a man because you are a woman. There's a term called feminine leadership. And it allows women to lead with the authenticity that they are. They are women, we are women, and if we need to educate our male counterparts to embrace this type of leadership, which is embedded on empathy, which is embedded on...
we're nearly done.
We're nearly done. Which is embedded on women analyze things. Women have intuition and bring all those values, because we don't need to reduce ourselves to be something that we are not in order for us to fit in the society. So I would say, lead as a woman. You are a woman. Bring your pink suit into the room. Bring your red lipstick into the room. The world will adjust.
Yeah, that's cool. Also, just to add into that, in the beginning we did say that most of us are working in male-dominated industries, and you've almost had to prove your way to get to the top. But also when you know self and are true to self in terms of your mission and what you want to do and how you've always wanted to do it, you do not need to conform to the norms of what was set before you. You know, be true to the task at hand. And like my fellow panelists said, you're a woman, you're not a man. You're different. Your thought process, your emotions, sometimes, those are things that come naturally to you. And sometimes we want to use them as a weakness for us as females. And sometimes we just need to internalize it and just know how to deal with self, because men don't get periods. Sometimes don't even have period pains. This is our reality which is basic things that we take for granted, that we have to deal with on a day-to-day, that our male counterparts don't have to deal with. So sometimes it's just that, look at self, note to self, know who you are, be true to your authenticity. You're not there to fight with the man because you're not them. Do your job and do it well. And just to sum it up, in a sense of reaching that equity and equality in the workplace, we have policies and procedures and all of this that's put in place. Can we stop with having the conversation and just do? Can we start actioning it and stop it being saying you're going to be in 127? No. Do it now, because you know it exists and the problem is there. And can we not forecast? Do it because you know there's a problem there.
Yeah. Sam, do you want to say anything?
very briefly. I love what you said, we're women, we're not men. And the way to deal with someone who wants to fight with you is just to create those healthy boundaries, that you don't have to have that conversation while everyone's upset. You can say, I hear what you have to say, let's pick it up later.
And I say, not everybody's going to like me because I'm not pizza. And that's okay.
Everybody likes pizza, actually.
The thing about it is, I think as women, we don't have to be men. We don't want to be men. But what they can learn from us is driving feminine leadership, driving conscious leadership. I think those are the things that make a difference in organizations, in our businesses. My t-shirts always that I wear always say, lead like women, that men can lead like women as well, because you can learn a lot from us. The thing is, we as women, we have compassion. We are nurturers. Those things are not just feel-good things. They can benefit businesses. They can benefit organizations. For me, I always say is women and men should network, but change those networking to connections. Just don't go to events to network. Find out who they are. You know, I go to events and I leave there, I have 5 LinkedIn requests. 5 LinkedIn requests myself. Some people will accept, some people will not accept, and that is okay. So collaboration is the new currency, but collaborate with the right people. Partner with the right people. And you can also say no, because boundaries, I say no when it comes to partnerships. Not all partnerships can work. A seat at the table, if you have a seat at the table, there isn't space, pull up chairs for others. But if you do get a chair, what is your voice? Because some women also feel entitled. And if you don't pull up a chair for them, they do not like you. I've also recently learned not to be liked. I question why people don't like me all over the years. Now I'm like, it's okay if you don't like me. I'm doing the best that I can. So to wrap it up, I think for us, the transition from equality to equity resides in this room. It resides in organizations, and it resides with men being in our allies as well, because the patriarchy is still there. They still dominate. They need to support the sisters. So I think this was really good. I think we've had quite a bit to say. We always have a lot to say. But thank you, ladies. Thank you all. These are my new friends. Thank you for listening to us. And again, if anybody wants any information, please reach out to us. And remember, as the founder of W Suite, I will be hosting mentorship masterclasses, and I encourage mentors to come and spend time and give their time to these other women. And remember, it's not only young women. It's older women that are also stuck in their environments. They're stuck in their jobs, and they don't know where to go. So I encourage you to sign up and say, I want to be a mentor. I want to spend 3 hours with some other women and men and share our insights, knowledge, and let's be the change we want to be. Good.